Joining me now is Avigail Gimpel. She is the author of Hyperhealing, the Empowered Patient's Complete Guide to Raising a Healthy Child with ADHD Symptoms. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's such a pleasure being here with you today.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. We're talking about ADHD today, and we hear these letters all the time, ADHD, ADD. I think first it would be great to define what that really means. So what's the definition for ADHD or ADD, or should we be using both of those sets of letters? I don't know.
Well, the terms come in and out of style depending on what DSM you're reading that day. It happens to be the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is essentially the Bible of psychiatry. I'm sure everybody, most people know that by now, but we're at the DSM-5, which is the latest version of it. And right now, ADD is out. And ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, different subtypes of ADHD is the way we refer to it. So if you want to be up with the times, that's the way we discuss it.
Okay.
What it really is a descriptive diagnosis of behavioral responses to something. Essentially, it would be like diagnosing someone, let's say, that had a sore throat. We would call it, this person has a sore, scratchy throat with a little itch. So ADHD is you're struggling with some kind of attention deficit, and the way it's diagnosed is through a checklist of symptoms, and you'll get a sense of what these symptoms, and you get a sense of what subset of ADHD you have based on how many yeses you get in each subset of symptoms.
Okay.
So, and it's important for me to say that, not to belittle ADHD, which I certainly am not. That's really what I've dedicated my life to. And a good number of my 6 children have been diagnosed with ADHD, as well as my husband. So I would say that it's certainly a very relevant and real diagnosis, but the diagnosis itself is meaningless unless we find out why the person is exhibiting those symptoms. I do believe that the person that is diagnosed with ADHD is a healthy person. If we go, and I had put out a post on Instagram, and I was talking about how to help a child not have tantrums in the supermarket. You're a mom just like me.
Yes.
I don't know if your children tantrumed in the supermarket, but Lord knows mine did.
Yes, they did.
So I was putting out some ideas of how to help a child regain control and not have tantrums, and empower a child to not have tantrums in a supermarket, which to me seems like a standard thing. And having raised 6 children, most of them with ADHD, I know that this is something that could be accomplished. And my kids are healthy and empowered and doing great, thank God.
Yes.
But I get a response back, and I'm giving some ideas, and I got some nice responses. And then one mom responds and says, or maybe we just have to accept that this is a neurodivergent way of responding. So what we're saying is, I'm expecting less of the child because I've decided that the child has a challenge that they cannot overcome. And that's not something I'm willing to sign on to. I'm willing to sign on to that it's more challenging for that child because that child needs to work that muscle more. But if my kid had a hard time walking because they had loose limbs, very over flexible, one of my kids had that, I wouldn't say, okay, so we're going to give up on the walking. I'd say, let's get some occupational therapy, physical therapy, and get the kid walking. It'll take a couple more months, but she can do it. And that to me is a problem.
Yeah, I hear you, because if we accommodate too soon, right, we're just going to accommodate to all these issues that a child may have. I think we've done them a disservice, rather than, okay, this is what we're dealing with. What we may not know the exact cause, or we haven't talked about that yet, but we may not know the exact cause. That's okay. Yeah. Let's see what we can do to make it better for them, so they can interact with the world in a way that will help them to be productive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a real curse of low expectations. Instead of saying you're on a journey and every day you can get stronger, and we have no idea what your potential is. You get to decide that.
I love
We're
that.
saying we've capped your potential.
Yes. Right. So So thank you for that information. I think it's really important, and it may be controversial. We can always talk about it. Today, people, instead of talking through controversy, everyone gets mad and walks away. Well, that doesn't get us anywhere, does it?
No, that's terrible. Oh my God, we are in such a mess.
Yes, for sure. Um, so what do they know what the cause is then? If it's not in the brain, it sounds like it's not, based on the
There's a
science.
possibility that it is. I'm not saying
I
it's
haven't found it
not.
yet.
I'm
Right,
saying we haven't fully identified that yet.
right.
And we're leaving that open to carry on searching for it for sure. But
Mhm,
yeah, that's actually what I do in my book. I go through all the causes, not all of them. It's impossible to go through all of them, but the major causes of ADHD symptoms. And we start with an instant gratification personality. And that is, again, that's a healthy personality, but
mhm,
that's a personality that clashes with our environment, because it's that personality that wants it everything here and now, and interesting and fun and dangerous
mhm,
and novel. And our world does not really nurture that very well.
mhm,
And that's fine. Like, not every, we don't need every personality type to be nurtured, but the child who has that kind of personality is going to be slightly immature, is going to run through friendships because they're looking for that excitement. So
mhm.
they're going to have to learn how to do friendships better. They're going to have to learn how to become mature better. And they also are missing habits big time, because we only create habits. You and I, again, as moms, know that you have to
Mhm,
really work hard to create habits while we're raising our children and doing anything else. And the only way we do it is by repetitive behavior. If
mhm,
you're instant gratification, you don't like to repeat boring behaviors. So
mhm.
they start tasks and then stop, and they don't like to transition because now I'm in the middle of something, mom, that's really, really fun. So leave me alone, and I'm not getting in the shower. No way. But then you finally take them with a crane, stick them in the shower, and then you
Right.
can't get them out because they're having so much fun in the shower and singing
Mhm,
and using the hot water of the entire neighborhood. So that is one challenge. And it's a healthy, challenging behavior that
mhm,
needs to be worked with in a very specific way. Then we have other causes like screen addiction
mhm,
and sleep problems. Screen addiction not only causes ADHD behavior, it also exacerbates what we would have before, which would be the instant gratification personality.
mhm.
So instant gratification minus screens would probably do better in school than with the screens.
Oh,
We
okay.
also have trauma, abuse, and neglect,
Mhm,
bullying. All that entire thing will definitely cause a child to go directly into ADHD behavior. We have sleep issues. So all of these things are going to cause ADHD symptoms.
So all of this that you're mentioning is really important when you have a child or family member who is given this diagnosis, ADHD. It seems
Mhm.
like it's sort of, I don't know how to put it, but sort of medicalizing this, right? We're saying this is the disease, but maybe that's not really the disease. There's so many other
Yeah.
things, components that you've mentioned.
Well, it's a very convenient diagnosis for both parent and doctor and teacher. Oh, and teacher. We're going
Hmm.
to throw teacher in there. And they all mean well, by the way.
Right,
Everyone
right.
wants the best for the child. And I firmly believe that. And I've seen
Hmm.
it over and over again because I work with all three groups.
Yes.
I teach teachers, actually. I'm
Hmm.
a college teacher, and I teach wonderful teachers. And I'm a teacher myself. But the thing is that when you have a diagnosis and you say, here's the diagnosis, I know why the child's struggling, there's something wrong with the brain, and I have this fix,
Hmm.
then everyone is a little bit off the hook there. Like,
Right.
you don't have to look further. And you know what? Changing a kid's diet is really hard. I've done it, I've tried it. And my son was celiac. We did a very intense diet. We did raw vegan for 2 months and
Hmm.
juicing
Wow.
and
How
green
old was
smoothies.
he when you did that? I'm just
He's a
curious.
superstar. He was
Yeah.
he was 13 years old.
Wow.
And
And he,
I said to him, we can get you down to zero. You will have no traces of autoimmunity in your blood if you stick with me for a bit. And that's what happened.
wow. That's
But it
amazing that he
was
was willing to do it at that age.
remarkable.
Hmm.
Like I said, he's a superstar.
Hmm.
But 2 months and his body was in pristine shape. But those were two hard months, and then you have to maintain. So, and not only that, if you're seeing that the cause is instant gratification personality, there's a lot of work to do. You have to learn how to help your kids get new habits. The teacher has to work hard. The mom has to work. The parents have to work hard. And therefore, it's very much more convenient. And like I said, they want the best for the kid, but hearing that there's a pill that fixes this is much easier than hearing, well, you have to change the diet and you have to completely change the way you discipline your children and flip your entire discipline program on its head. Good luck.
I completely understand. And I can relate because I remember with my older son going to these IEP meetings and at school, and, them suggesting maybe he needs another pill, because he's still having difficulty. And, as a parent, it's scary and disheartening and also on the other side, the teachers have a large classroom of students. They have a lot to do. You're a teacher and a mother. This other school of thought that you're presenting adds much more to their plate, because this diagnosis is pretty prevalent, isn't it? They may have several students in the classroom.
I have actually met with teachers of classrooms that had 50% of their class diagnosis is high school. 50%. Now that's not standard. It's more standard is 20% of boys and closer to 15% of girls, which is still outrageous.
Yes, it's a lot. One more question for you, and it's about adult diagnosis. We've been talking a lot about children and parenting and teachers. You mentioned in the beginning that your husband has ADHD. So can adults be diagnosed with this? And then are we looking at all the same kind of causes, or what are your thoughts about that?
So I actually work with adults a lot and really enjoy it. I specifically work with couples. And that's some fascinating work because they have to be reintroduced to each other's brains, basically, and different thought processes, not broken brains, but the way each of them thinks and what makes them tick. But what happens with adults is that, and generally when adults are diagnosed and they didn't have ADHD symptoms before, then it's a kind of a strange diagnosis to me, because it seems to me it's more, I call it ADHD of the fourth child. And it's just a joke I have with my students, because I have a lot of students with large families, because I'm teaching in the Orthodox Jewish community. And therefore, like, a family of 7 kids is average. So I say to them, like, how many kids do you have? It's always 4. And I'm like, yeah, well, your plate has overflown. And therefore, you have become overwhelmed. That's not a disorder. That's you need help. You need cleaning help, and you need a vacation. And also you need to learn skills of balancing more kids and more responsibility. But if I see an adult who actually had symptoms as a child, but it was missed, or they were just diagnosed as lazy. And then therefore what happens is a whole new level of complexity comes into the picture, which is the emotional stuff, the low self-esteem, the worthlessness feeling, this very fixed personality. I am I am not a hard worker. I'm a failure, all that stuff. So you have to start by peeling that away. And only then could you really look at, well, what was it that caused this? Was it your personality? Was it the way you were born? Was it your environment? Was there abuse there? Was there neglect? And getting to the diet, but first you got to peel off that very thick layer of emotional toll that this person has paid.
Right. Interesting. Well, I'm so glad that you're there to help people with this. Where can people get in touch with you, and where can they find your book?
Okay, so my book is on Amazon. Great. And that is, and actually the book has at the end of each chapter what's a cheat sheet, meaning I'm writing it for parents who have ADHD themselves in many cases. Well, it's it's definitely something that's passed down through the generations. We see that in my family very clearly. So I actually put out just for $1 the cheat sheets themselves. So if you want to just get a quick review and then decide if you'd like to read the full book. The book is bigger, but it really is a full coaching program. and you can go through it. I always recommend that you go through it with a group of friends, because
Nice.
if you do it with a group of friends, you make a WhatsApp group, and the friends go through it together. They read a chapter a week, and then they
Mhm,
discuss it together
mhm.
physically, come together, see each other. That's
What?
important. Yeah,
What?
I know. Isn't that crazy? It's the only way it works. And then you do that with 2, 3 friends,
Mhm.
you're all going to succeed. If you try to do it alone, you'll do fine, but get together as a group and do it. So you
Yes.
definitely can get the book on Amazon, Hyper Healing, and but you can reach out to me at on my website, which is hyperhealing.org, and you could ask a question directly to me through the website. I always respond. I'm always happy to hear your questions or anything else.
Excellent. Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me, Abigail.